How you doing, guys? Great to see you here again. Today, I have another deck. This deck, same thing if you come from the other deck profile, from the Swordcraft deck profile. Same thing, I was playtesting with this deck. This is my roommate's deck. The only problem is that they just don't get killed. So, after a lot of trial and error, going back and forward, kind of like play testing it and theorizing on the deck. This deck is actually pretty good, and I know a lot of people will probably be playing Cinderella Girls, the cool one. I play tested this against the cool, and it performed pretty freaking well. You can finish games on turn 5, 6 pushing it, or you could just steal games pretty early. But other than that, I was not expecting this deck to be actually pretty good, or obviously I just got super lucky and all that stuff. But yeah, anyways, this is Sanguine Abyss Craft deck. So yeah, I'll probably explain a couple cards here and there. So yeah, anyway, starting with the cost zeros, we have probably the most important card that you really want to see. You need to see this card in your opening hand. It don't matter how, you really want to like mulligan into this card. Unless you're playing against something that you know they have spot removal, screw it. So if you see your opponent playing against Runecraft, just forget it. Just save this for a better opportunity. But if you know that you're playing against something that doesn't have spot removals, just go crazy and just drop that as early as you can. The effect is just too much. It triggers Sanguine whenever you need it, and all this stuff, and it just burns your opponent 1 extra point when she attacks. So yeah. Next, we're playing 3 copies of Goblin. I was a little bit iffy. I was debating and playing Bellringer, but actually this card was way better than I expected, actually. So yeah, it's just a column, not much to expect. So yeah, but I'll explain the reason why this card is pretty busted. So yeah. Next, to round up all the cost 1 cards, we're playing 2 copies of Emerald Raid, 2 copies of Skeleton Fighter, and 2 copies of Wings of Lust. Wings of Lust is that extra card in case you really just need to get rid of cards, or just to burn yourself, just to trigger Sanguine. It's pretty good. Skeleton Fighter turns into a 3/3, just overwhelms your opponent in case your opponent, doesn't have an answer to it. And Ambling Ray is kind of like the bread and butter. Same thing, you can just hold him until have something for Sanguine. The only annoying part is that you have to pay an extra play point instead of attacking with the Disciple of Lust. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the cost ones. But yeah, I hope I explained as much as I could. But yeah, next, this is probably the best card, to be honest. This will probably save you a lot. If you see this card, you don't really have to evolve it as soon as possible. So you can just go ahead and play it, and every end phase you will heal 1, heal 1, heal 1. Obviously, if your opponent really wants to commit an Angelic Snipe or something to get rid of this card, it's their choice. But healing every end phase is pretty freaking good. And in case you don't want, you can just go ahead and evolve it for 1, and it starts dealing 1 to your opponent, and it can't attack. So yeah. Obviously, the only drawback about this card is that it cannot attack, but it's preferred. I didn't see any reason of attacking with this. Obviously, you want to attack this as well, but yeah. Next, this other card, I was a little bit iffy about it, but I do not regret getting rid of this card. At the start of your turn, you deal yourself 1 damage, so you could. There are a couple situations where I have 2 in hand, so I just played him. When past turn. My opponent either wants to attack me directly and all this stuff, and yeah, it hurts for sure, 100%, and then during your turn you're gonna take 1, but it will always trigger Sanguine at the beginning of your turn, so this is kind of like Disciple of Lust type scenario. But if you have situations where you have her on the field and then this guy on the field, obviously you deal yourself 1 damage, and during the end phase you just basically heal it back. So yeah, the only thing that you have to be careful about this card is that, well, you could technically, it's kind of like a double-edged sword, so you could, die due to this card. But yeah, early game, this is kind of like the bread and butter. You really want to see that card. But yeah, I'm sorry. Next, we're playing 3 copies of Fina. You have a lot of cost 1s, or early game, get rid of cost 1 cards, and all the stuff. But sometimes I just really wanted to whiff with this card because we played the Omen of 1, and the Omen of 1 is actually pretty busted. So yeah, Fina, self-explanatory. 3 copies of the Omen of Lust. I'm not going to try to pronounce her name. She's, Sanguine is going to be activated, so, basically she would just gain Storm. And the other effect is, on strike, deal X damage depending on how many damage you took that turn, how instances. So, let's say you attack with and it happened a couple of times with me, where I had 2 copies of Disciple of Lust, and the Antelope, the Belt Warrior. So basically I got 1 damage first. Obviously you take a shit ton of damage, but your opponent is gonna, be in more pain, so you can just go ahead and play, both Disciples of Lust attacks, dealing both players +1/+1. They basically sacrifice themselves, getting rid of something, and then just play her. Same thing, you can kind of like get to that extra point if your HP is 7. She gets on attack +2/+2. So yeah, that happens very rarely, but you could force that interaction for sure. Now the next card that I feel like is very straightforward and it's like a staple, Pandemonium Punk Devil. Card is super busted. You could trigger Sanguine and give it Bane. He has Ward, so it's a pretty good way to defend yourself in case things go wild. And, when he dies, he heals you too, so it's another good card just to heal you and stall a little bit, especially that early game. Next, this card, pretty freaking good. I really liked it. So basically, this is just like Firing Blaze or something. Select an enemy follower on the field and destroy it. If Sanguine is activated, you deal 3 damage to your opponent. So, yeah, I don't even know how to explain how good this card is, to be honest. Same thing, just burning 2 to your opponent's pretty freaking good. And obviously getting rid of a card on the field, by itself, your opponent's going to be struggling. But yeah. Next, for the rest of the cost 3, Goblin Princess. This brings the Goblin, the Goblin from the deck. The other thing is that you could overwhelm your opponent with a lot of stuff. So there were a couple situations, at least when I play against my roommate, that they were playing this deck, but they did a misplay, that they had the Goblin Princess, they summon a Goblin, and then from their hand they play another Goblin, and then they evolve the Goblin Princess. So, obviously, unevolved, she gets you the Goblin King. The Goblin King will just give all the Goblins +1/+1. Obviously, they have to wait 1 turn, so I couldn't get rid of them, for sure. So the next turn, the only thing that their misplay was that they didn't play the Goblin King. They could have just played the Goblin King and everything would attack for super high numbers. And it would be super freaking annoying to deal with. But yeah, the fact that this card just puts Ward in your back and then boost your cards is pretty freaking good. I really like it. I really enjoy it. So yeah, especially if you're going second, it's a pretty good card. Just having that Goblin King in the back, it's just good. Next, the other card that steals a lot of games and got me tripped out a lot. This guy, the Berserk guy. If Sanguine is activated during the end phase, you deal 3 damage to something or 3 damage to your opponent. So yeah, basically, if you start with the Omen of Lust, you kind of know where that's going. So you could just go ahead, play Omen, attack with Omen of Lust, then play this guy, end phase, start burning your opponent. Next turn, you attack with the Omen of Lust, attack with this guy, and then, end phase deals more damage to your opponent. So early game is just, it puts your opponent in a very tough spot if your opponent can't really have an answer to this card. Next, we have 2 copies of Dark General. That 5/5 on turn 4, it's, especially with, like I said, with the Omen of Lust, yeah, it's hard. And finally, not least, the MVP that you really kind of want to see this card, the Omen of 1. This guy is busted in this deck. You really would just want to drop all your all your cards, frickin', you're top decking. You really, like, your cards really don't matter, whatever. Swarm your field. This guy by itself, it carries the entire field. To start the end phase, if you have 2 or less cards in your hand, it deals 3 damage to your opponent. If you don't have cards in your hand, it also deals 3 damage to every follower on your field. But yeah, but the thing is that the evolve version of him is where the magic happens. But yeah, anyways, that's it for the main deck. Now I'm going into the evolve deck to explain, other stuff. The idle card chick, like I said, on evolve, like at the start of your turn, deals 1 to your leader, and when she dies, it deals 1 more. So your opponent gets rid of it. So they take 2 damage technically, or something. For some reason, that managed to just get rid of it. This card just seals game by itself. So yeah. Next, the Omen of 1. The rest of the cards are just generic. Omen of 1. I just play 3 because there could be situations where you just you play him, your opponent gets rid of it, you draw another one, and play it again, and go from there. But the Omen of 1, like I said, self-explanatory. This card is busted. He does the same effect as the other guy. But instead of 3 damage, it deals 5 instead. And then the other effect is that at the beginning of your end phase, he just refreshes himself, so only cards with a sail will be able to touch him. So yeah, he's pretty busted. But yeah. Next, 2 copies of Goblin Princess and 2 copies of Goblin, cause he turns into a 4/4. 4/4 cost, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, 4/4 cost. But there are a couple situations where this comes in. But yeah, so that's pretty much it for the deck profile. So yeah, hope you like it. Sorry for that, the camera. Hope you liked the video. Pretty straightforward. I don't know, like the video, subscribe if you want to see more content, to be honest. And yeah, hopefully I'll do more content if I can, and peace.